Thank you very much, Jenny. That's one of my favorite videos. We actually use that inside the company at our annual or 18-month leadership program. We bring in the top 300 executives. And you can see that we do a lot of cool stuff, but also it's all about people. And today what I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about the company, give you a little sense of the business aspects of the company and the strategy, and then kind of move into the question of people, leadership, and then the question and answer. I did, in fact, grow up here in Southern California. I was 9 years old when Sputnik was launched, and it was a very significant event for me because I had no idea what it was, but I knew it was important. And I knew that space and science and technology were important, and so I got all excited about that, and I was pretty good at math. And I ended up going on that course. And so I was a space cadet as a youngster, and I'm still a space cadet. In fact, I'll be giving the keynote address over at Caltech next week for the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of space. It's going to be an exciting gathering. There's going to be people from all over the world. So, what I'd like to do now is find the device that advances my slides. Thanks, Kevin. All right. One that says forward is forward, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right, let me do this. Let me run through a couple of slides just to give you a sense of what Northrup is all about as a company, as a business enterprise, and then move into the people side of it. There's a set of financial disclosures in here because today the laws are extremely strict about the forward-looking statements, and we treat this as a public gathering. You don't have to read all this, but you can do it later, sometime between now and 2010, when you graduate. By the way, I may be retired by the time you guys graduate. Northrup today, $31 billion in sales, $60 billion of backlog. We're operating in all 50 states, close to 30 countries now, over 200 principal locations, a lot of employees, about a third, almost a half of them are scientists and engineers, which is one of the things I really enjoy about the company because it's a real technological powerhouse. We have 350 million shares outstanding. Market capitalization of the company is around $27 billion. We are traded publicly on the New York Stock Exchange. And as a publicly traded company, we enjoy a broad, diverse base of shareholder ownership, although most of it tends to be institutional, which is the case for most large corporations today. The business of the company is roughly divided into four pieces. You think of Northrop as an airplane company. It certainly was and is. Grumman, an airplane company. But in fact, Northrop and Grumman today together account for probably less than 8,000 of our 120,000 people. And so we're much, much more than that today. If you take a look at the pie chart, information and services is our biggest business. And that's a broad category of things involving software, command and control systems, technical support services. We'll share a few minutes what those are. Electronics, principally radars and other devices. Aerospace, obviously aircraft and spacecraft and ships. We're the largest military shipbuilder in the world and the largest shipbuilder in the United States. We have a whole variety of customers, but about 70% of our business is in defense and intelligence. 90% is in the government in some form. About 10% is commercial. You can see listed there, and I won't read them for you, the various customers we have within the United States government and other governments. We also have international customers as well, which I didn't put on there. But in fact, the corporation is very good at technology. It's good at solving complex problems. It's very good at working with very arcane bureaucracies, government buyers, as opposed to selling toothpaste to the general public. We have a lot of competitors. As you can imagine, any business you have customers and you have competitors. If you don't have competitors, you really don't have a business. And these are we call them the usual suspects. These are people that we see in the marketplace every day. There are our most bitterly feared rivals, and also the way the business works, they are often our most trusted partners. On many programs, we will compete. In other programs, the same company will be a critical supplier of technology to us, and we will be a critical supplier to them. And it's a unique characteristic of the defense and national security business that it works this way. So you have all the benefits of competition, all the testosterone associated with it, but you also have the ability to come together when you put together something which makes the nation more secure, and our government can actually buy it, and we can work on it together and work with each other on it. Let me just quickly go through the four businesses, and I'll do it pictorially. Aerospace, the B-2 bomber on the upper left-hand side. This is one of our proudest moments. I think you've all seen the B-2 or know about the B-2 bomber, a stealthy aircraft. 6 B-2 flights took down the entire air defense system of Afghanistan. And the flights came out of Missouri. Pilots got on the plane in the morning in Missouri, kissed their wives and families goodbye, flew, refueled 3 times over, 2 times coming back, did their missions. Plane did it 6 times, and that was it. Remarkable aircraft, stealth aircraft, with precision weapons. You see a variety of other unmanned aircraft. The one on the upper right is an unmanned combat air system that we just were awarded, which is the next generation fighter plane that will operate off the deck of an aircraft carrier. Comparably, we have the helicopter is an unmanned helicopter with reconnaissance. Missile capability is actually taken down terrorists early this month in Iraq. Guys who were planting IED devices by the road, they were taken out before they could plant them. Global Hawk, unmanned surveillance aircraft. You can see a variety of other things. We also have quite a few spacecraft. This is our legacy from TRW, which is an important part of the current Northrup family. We are, as I said, the largest shipbuilder. You can see that we build every class of ship, large nuclear aircraft carriers. And if you ever see one of these things, you turn it on its side, it's taller than the Empire State Building. Taller than the Empire State Building. 26 stories tall, sitting in the water, but unintended, it's taller than the Empire State Building. Amphibious assault ships, destroyers, nuclear submarines, and now we're developing a new class of Coast Guard cutters. In the information services area, a little more difficult to explain because it deals with cyberspace, but extremely important. The one on the upper left-hand side is a picture of the New York skyline. We're putting in place an emergency responder system for all of New York City, for all 5 boroughs, as a direct result of the 9/11 attacks. There was no way fire, the police, the other civil officials, and first responders could communicate with each other because the entire infrastructure went down. The City of New York has given us a $500 million contract to implement that across the city, so that won't happen again. These are devices that can communicate while you're at high speed, while you're inside of buildings, in elevators, and urban canyons. This is going to be very important. A whole variety of other command and control systems which allow our military and homeland security forces to have better intelligence than our enemies and be able to then apply communications and resources to solve the battle problems. On the right side, electronics, radars, devices that go on airplanes to prevent missiles from shooting them down. We're equipping all the major aircraft in the United States inventory and the inventory of our allies, the British and others. We're also now developing a system to go on commercial airplanes. And that's going to be very important. We have about 500 major programs in the company and over 30,000 active contracts. And that's an enormous amount of activity. Just a little bit on the financials for the company. We've had sales growth in the last few years following the last major acquisition in 2002 of TRW. We would like to have had it go higher, but we have had some issues. We had a huge hurricane that hit our shipyard operations in the Gulf and caused more than $1 billion of damage, devastated the shipyards, and set us back in terms of sales growth, but we're coming back. Operating margin, we're very proud of this. We've been driving operating margin for the company, as well as absolute value, as well as operating margin percent. Cash from operations, because as you'll learn in the next several years, cash is king. You can talk about accounting all you want, but if you're not generating cash in the business, cash on cash returns, you're not really creating value. And then ultimately, what our shareholders look at is earnings per share, and we're very proud of this because it says that the typical shareholders see growth in earnings, and we see an appreciation of the stock price as a result. We've had ups and downs, all businesses do. 06 was not a great year. We increased our value by about 15%. Our competitors did more in their share price. But since the first of this year, that's why I picked this chart, we've done even better than they have, with a black line on the top. So when you get to pick your charts, you can show whatever you want. But it's been a great investment this year, and we're hoping to make sure that it continues to be that. Now let me shift gears and talk a little bit about more the human side, the leadership side of this business. We talk about technology and stuff. We start with a vision. When I became the CEO of the company, we had just transformed from being an aircraft maker to being much broader, all the dimensions I just showed you. So whereas before our vision was to build the best combat airplanes, the fact is our vision had to be broader than that. As we thought about what we were and who we were and what we wanted to do, we realized that underlying all of this was the issue of security, national security, homeland security, security of our nation, our allies, and trust. And what we wanted to be is the most trusted provider of the systems and technologies that ensure the freedom of our nation and its allies. We set that up as a goal. And trust meant our customers ought to be able to trust us, our owners, our shareholders ought to be able to trust us, and our employees ought to be able to trust ourselves, us, each other, and there be basically a culture of integrity from top to bottom of the company. And as you know from reading the newspapers, companies have had some really rough times. And when there's a breakdown in trust, when there's any real or perceived issue in this regard, the entire franchise can be damaged, in some cases destroyed. And you saw that with companies such as WorldCom, Enron, even Arthur Anderson, where in that particular case, a transgression, real or perceived, in a local office in Houston basically brought down a 40,000 person firm and destroyed the life savings of all partners and destroyed the jobs of everybody in the company. So this is something very important to us. It takes a lifetime to build a reputation, a very short period of time to destroy a reputation. As part of this concept, we want to be our customers' provider of choice. We want them to come to us first. We want to be the place where you'd rather work than any one of our competitors. And we want to be our shareholders' investment of choice because they do have choices, not just in our industry, but across all industry groups. So the concept of the company is creating value using our technology and our people, underlying a concept of trust. So with that, we have a variety of challenges, like any business has. We have strategic challenges, we have operational challenges, and we have the people challenges. And let me just say a couple of words about each of those. Strategic challenges. As you know, we're in the business of national security. The threats to our nation's security are constantly changing, both in reality and perception. Not long ago, there was a Cold War. You were younger then, you were probably in your teens. That Cold War dominated our thinking for 40 or 50 years following World War II. And the structure of this company and other companies was to provide assistance to our government, to provide the systems that could help us take on the Russians in this very, very serious confrontation between the Soviet Union and the United States. The Berlin Wall came down in 1989, and in the 90s things shifted. There was apparently a period of peace. There was a peace dividend, if you will, and what developed from that, of course, was the most significant development which we all live with, and you all will live with for the next several decades, I'm afraid to say, which is the global war on terror. That's not going away. That is the next Cold War. But there are other threats as well. We have threats from potentially emerging superpowers. We are concerned about the emergence of China as a potential rival, certainly economically. We have to be concerned that there might also be a military threat associated with that. We hope not. Nobody wants that. But the nation has to prepare for that just to be the case. We're concerned about the re-emergence of Russia, as we call the new Soviet Union, as Russia. We're concerned about other countries such as Iran, North Korea, etc. So we have to be concerned about those. And within all of that, the United States government thinks about its defense spending 5-10 years in advance. We have to watch the budget trends, so it's very significant in terms of our marketplace. In some cases, our business is driven by the external threat. Where we can differentiate ourselves is thinking about that threat and thinking about how to provide solutions for it before our politicians and government come up with the fact that they have to do it, and then we're ready. If we can do that better than our competitors, we can be more successful, and frankly, the nation is better off for it. Our own competitors, the Lockheeds, the Boeings, etc. What are they up to? You know, they're up to no good, so we got to figure out what they're doing. And how do we counter those? Emerging and disruptive technologies. We're a technology-driven business, and you may think that the vacuum tubes are going to be here forever. One day the transistor comes. You may think that large mainframes will be the way you do these systems, and suddenly there's mini computers, and then desktop computers, and microcomputers. There's a whole range of new technologies that will change. One example that we're working on in our laboratories in Redondo Beach is directed energy weapons, providing solid-state technology to provide high-power lasers of up to 100,000 kilowatts that can basically take out a weapon, and shoot down a missile coming at you, shoot down an artillery shell, and take out a line, an enemy, speed of light. That can change the game entirely. We're not quite there yet in the technology, but it is something which is coming, and we want to be the disruptor and not the disrupted. Capital structure for the company. How much debt did you have? How much equity? You'll study this in a few years, the whole question of the corporate capital structures. But in fact, it is a balance. And you want to maximize your return on capital for the shareholders, and that will involve a combination. That will shift over time depending on your corporate strategy and the various characteristics of the debt markets. And finally, shaping the portfolio of businesses in the company. We never say that every single business we have is ideal. Sometimes businesses are better in the hands of others. Sometimes we need to add a business to increase our capabilities, and we've done that, and I'll show you in just a few minutes the acquisitions we've gone through. But the whole intent here from our strategic challenge is to turn this into how do we achieve first quartile performance that is amongst the top 25% of our peers, and if we can do that, we can significantly differentiate ourselves and our stock price. Operational challenges. Our business, I told you, we have 500 major programs, 30,000 contracts. It's all about doing what we say we will do, executing on the contracts we have undertaken. They're complex contracts, they're complicated contracts. Our customers are not always on top of things, but we need to be able to do that. And if we do well on those, we make good returns. If we don't do, we will take charges to our earnings. We'll have lower margins. We want to expand our operating margin. I think I showed you the chart on progress so far. Get higher turnover on our assets. And we want to win more than our share so that we can grow faster than our competitors. So this is all about achieving first quartile financial performance. Finally, the human capital challenges, the people dimension here. One of the things we've done is with the enormous number of acquisitions we've had, and I'll show you the chart in a minute, how do you forge a one Northrop Grumman culture so that you have ethics and integrity and a focus on performance? People do the right thing. You want them highly motivated. You don't want them stepping over the red line and doing something wrong or taking shortcuts. How do you attract and retain the best and the brightest people? And we have an aging workforce in all of the technology business and a paucity of technical talent coming out of our schools. And we only hire kids who are U.S. citizens because of the nature of our work, and increasingly a smaller number of kids available in engineering, science, and technology. Every company has the issue of how do you afford benefits, healthcare, pension plans. It's an increasing problem for not only the companies, but for the nation. I think you watched the General Motors saga, where several $1,000s of every car goes to pay the medical benefits of people who don't even work there anymore because of the legacy of the union contract. And then how do you develop leaders for the future? So how do you create the best workforce in the business? This is just a chart to show you some of the nearly 30 companies that we have acquired over the last several years. And every one of these companies is a magnificent enterprise with good people, special technologies, but with a unique culture. So we have a rich heritage of multiple cultures. How do you forge a one Northrop Grumman culture going forward? This is something I've personally put a lot of energy into the last 5 years as part of my tenure leading this company. It's one thing to announce a big acquisition. It's quite another thing to be able to integrate it, acculturate it, and get the value of the acquisition. Let me conclude my remarks before we go to Q&A with 7 ideas that I would suggest you think about. Everybody has their own leadership style. But one of the leadership principles I have with these 7, set the vision. If you're in charge of something, figure out where you want to go. If you don't know where you're going, nobody's going to follow you. Second, surround yourself with the very best people for that. And don't be bashful about getting those good people. Third, you've got them now, listen to them, because collectively they are smarter than you are. In fact, the expression we use is all of us are smarter than any one of us. Empower them. If you've given them the opportunity to do something, let them do it. Check with them, talk to them, coach them. Stretch them, give them assignments that they may or may not feel comfortable in. But if they're good people, they have good capabilities and skills, or like you say, good athletes, they'll in fact surprise you in a very positive way. Work for them. This is unusual. Everybody says, well, I work for my boss. But the best bosses actually understand that it's the other way around. As the boss, your job is to work for the people. report to you. That is, you help them get what they need to get their jobs done. If they need resources, you help them get the resources. If they need facilities, you get them a good facility. If they need some access to technology, make the arrangements. In my case, I have people running major programs. They have difficulties. If you can only go and talk to several members of Congress and ask them if they can help us with the defense budget of this thing, so you brought it, and I get on the plane and I go. This is very, very important. And this, I think, distinguishes the best leaders from the also ran. The best leaders know that their job, as long as they're in charge, is to work with the people. And finally, when you're successful, give your people credit, because in fact they did all the work. So with that, let me now turn it over to Judy and go to Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you for that great overview of the magnificent company and wonderful leadership principles. So I'm going to open up a little bit on some questions here and then turn it over to you. So you're a three-time engineer, a rocket scientist, and I'll phrase this in a rather blunt fashion. What are the ingredients that made you CEO of a $30 billion company versus, quote, just being a really, really great engineer?
That's a hard question to answer. Let me ask the audience, how many of you are trained as engineers or scientists? I love it. You're my kind of people. You know how they can tell an engineer who has management potential? He looks at the other fellow's shoes when he's talking instead of his own shoes. I think there is, think about that. I think I tend to look more at the other fellow's shoes than my own shoes. You know, the technology is exciting, and I always love the math and what have you. But I found that I enjoyed interacting with people a lot too, and I enjoyed the relationship with people. And I found that it was really neat if I could cause something to happen that was more better outcome than I could do by myself. And while I was a pretty good engineer, I wasn't the best engineer, I don't think. And while I worked in teams, I found sometimes other people were smarter than me in a lot of ways. So, and I also was very lazy because I found it was easier to get people motivated to do things I didn't want to do than to do it myself sometimes, and make sure they get the credit for it. So that's kind of the philosophy I had. And I hated sitting in a cubicle. You all know Dilbert, right? You know, I hated being Dilbert because I'd rather be wandering around with coffee, talking to guys, than actually working.
I'll put in a plug for some of the components of both the leadership orientation program and what you'll be doing later on, and that is focusing on the behavioral dimensions of leadership, on emotional intelligence, which that's the measure of difference between those that are the minimum sufficient conditions, which would be very smart, but what's that other added measure on?
Yeah.
You agree?
Yep, I agree. I think that is a differentiator, and there's a difference between management and leadership. And books have been written, courses have been given, and sometimes it's hard to quantify, but you know when you see it. When you see somebody that you want to be a part of, you want to be with that person, that's leadership. And usually you think about your own style and your own behavior. Do you do the things that you want people to want to be with you and make you be more successful?
The accountabilities for a public defense firm with these mega long-term projects with so many lives on the line are frightening, daunting, and yet you're accountable. You at the head of a 120,000 person firm on a day-to-day basis with all of these almost 30 acquisitions. How do you create shared purpose? How do you exercise leadership in such a diffuse, amorphous entity?
I don't know that I have the formula completely right yet, but I've been at it here for 4 or 5 years and we've been having some pretty good success. I think you want people to believe they're part of something bigger than themselves and that they want to be part of that. And you kind of have to set the direction for that. We say when we bring a company into Northrup, welcome to Northrup Grumman. Let's honor the heritage that your company brought, but from this day forward, you're Northrop Grumman just like all the rest of us. We say it's like coming to America. You had a culture, a heritage, a religion, a tradition from where the country came from. but now we're all Americans, we're going to make a greater country together, and we do that. So we use the term One Northrup Grumman, which is kind of our code word. We talk a lot about what that means, and we talk about, we have a vision, but we also have values and behaviors. And one of the things that I do as the chief executive of the company is I move around the company, and there's a lot of people to see it, you can imagine, is to reinforce the vision, the values, and the behaviors. The values start with integrity, and we talk about other things, about how we treat each other, the commitment we have to doing what we say we will do, meeting our customers' needs, and remembering that the lives of our customers basically are on the line for doing our job right. So surrounding ourselves, my level and the next several levels down, with all the right people, putting the process in place, and having a common mindset that we're in this thing in a very serious way, and we have an obligation much bigger than just our daily jobs.
And you spend a lot of time on this company.
You really do, and you know, it always turns out you're surprised at how many people didn't get the memo. And you think, you know, I guess there are memos still, right? There are memos, right? I guess even
I
get the
remember.
email.
I remember.
That,
I am.
Yeah, you can never, as a CEO, you get tired of talking and hearing yourself say the same things. You always want to say new things, but you don't realize that when you establish a theme or a message, you have to communicate it repeatedly, sometimes in different ways, to make sure it really goes on. And you cannot assume that if you talk to all the people who report to you, that the people who report to them, and under, maybe probably 7 or 8 levels of management underneath me, get it exactly the same way. So it's important to have large all-hands meetings. We do streaming videos. We do town halls. We try and make sure everybody, I send out communications all the time. I do Q&A. By the way, lots of emails. I answer every email except for the ones which are threatening and turn those over to the security department. I think we have those issues as well in the country. But it's really important to create a connectivity with everybody, not just people who just work for you.
So one of the roles of the leader is to vision and strategically plan. And yet in your business, it's so much driven by externalities. Who would have thought 10 years ago that we'd be in such a military build-up phase in the peak of a war on terror? And how do you predict 10 years out what those externalities are going to be, and therefore how you run your business?
That is the $64,000 question. Next week, I'll have my board of directors for our annual strategic meeting. We're going to go to Palmdale, by the way, which is one of the cities Air Force Base in Palmdale, one of the historic centers of the advancement of technology and airplanes. B-2 bomber was built there. And we're going to spend a lot of time on that very question, looking out 5 to 10 years. We have on our board of directors former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We have someone who was a former advisor to Henry Kissinger. We have former members of Congress. We have various thinkers, CEOs, and we're going to mix it up, kind of take our suits off and kind of have a no-holds-barred discussion about predicting the future and the range of future outcomes. And then we're going to say, with this range of outcomes, where do we put our investments in this company? Our capital investments, our human capital. What do we train for? What advanced research projects do we want to have? Where do we want to position? What 1 or 2 companies out there might we want to acquire to be ready for this next wave? And how do we make sure we get it right? And it is a game of chance. People, as you said, would never predict that suddenly the Cold War would turn into the GWOT, the Global War on Terror. What's next after that? One of the things that we're going to deal with is our company doesn't do a lot of armored vehicles. We don't do bullets and bombs. That's been in great supply and demand the last couple of years. Is that going to continue? Is the United States going to have hundreds of thousands of troops deployed on the ground in major occupations of hostile countries? Or are we going to go back to something more strategic where we'll have the ability to strike quickly and get out quickly? And if so, how does that inform the way you think about the technology the company should have 5 or 10 years from now?
I'll ask one more question and then prime you to ask yours. You're a mega government contractor in the business of fulfilling long, large-scale government contracts. Is your corporate culture adaptable to a private sector competitive mentality?
No.
And I think you might want to just say how much of your business is.
Yeah, let me start out by saying that 70% of our business today is defense and intelligence systems. 90% of it, the next 20%, is government in some form, including the city of New York, the county of San Diego, various other civil agencies that are not defense. About a little less than 10% is commercial. We're not very good at purely commercial business, and there's a reason for that. We have structured ourselves, and our industry is very similar over the years, to deal with complex bureaucracies that buy complicated stuff, and there's lots of rules, lots of oversight, lots of process, and therefore lots of cost that goes into what we do. We have more auditors auditing our auditors than any country in the world. Contrast that with a commercial company that has to move quickly in the market, find something that doesn't have that same level of oversight. Commercial companies don't do very well in defense. Defense companies have not done well in commercial. When the Berlin Wall came down, the United States defense industry went down in terms of sales to people by more than 50%. It was a dramatic period in the early 90s. And many companies tried to convert themselves into commercial businesses. They talked about beating swords into plowshares. One of my colleagues, former colleague, Norm Augustine, a capable guy, used to run Martin Marietta, said, the defense industry's conversion to commercial business is unblemished by any success. And that is just about right. And anytime, Grumman, Northrup Grumman, we tried to build canoes. We tried to build buses, flexible buses, a disaster. We built delivered bakery trucks, all aluminum bakery trucks. They're very expensive, so built out of the same aluminum that goes into the Grumman fighter planes. Not too economic. We have done a few things. We find the best opportunity to take our technology out of our laboratories, find a partner who understands that channel distribution, that market, license with them, do what we do well, let them do what they do well, and not try and become a commercial provider. So I'd say for the near future, certainly in my tenure, I don't see us becoming a commercial company of any sort.
Okay, question. And do you mind telling us who you are?
Yes, my name is Javed. You have microphones for this, please.
Microphone is coming down. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Javed Khan, and I'm in Section 3, and I'm a member.
That was the loudest section, I thought.
First of all, thank you for coming here and talking to us.
Where do you work?
I work for a company called Smith's Group,
Okay.
especially in the Smith's
Question.
Catchment team. My question is twofold. First of all, for your executives, people who are at VP or director level, what kind of program do you have to build their leadership skills? Secondly, could you reflect a little bit about how a day in your life, a weekday is like, what are some of the things you do?
Okay, first one is we are very focused on the leadership issue. We have put in fact, one of the ways we implemented this question a few years ago is when I took over is we got to get people together on the same page, and we ought to probably have the corporate leadership program. It's not a brilliant new idea, but our company really didn't have one because we were so focused on survival in the early 90s and acquisitions. So we put in a program we called Leading One, LEAD 1NG, NG Northrop Grumman. So Lead 1NG, kind of a little play on words there. And we decided we would first start with the top 320 executives. Those are all the people in our company who hold the title of vice president. And that's the first 320 of our 120,000. And we would pull them together for a week. We'd give them free reads, and we'd take them through a curriculum which we helped. We got actually some help from the outside. I'm not sure we got help from UCLA, but several other business schools. We put together a program ourselves.
We're going to fix that.
We'll fix that. We're going to keep doing it. We'll do it again. And we decided that if it's a leadership program, the CEO had to be out in front leading. So it's not one of those things where I could assign this to the staff to run, and then I could, tell them what to do better. So what I did is I started the program off myself. I would be the first morning, and I just come out, talk about my view of the world, the company, have them interact with me, and share the campfire stories, if you will. And then we ran through the program. We brought in other people, other executives, outside speakers. We dealt with diversity, with ethics, integrity. We had some financial stuff. And then we've now promulgated that down to the next 1,600 people. Now, within each of our sectors, divisions, and other organizations, we have leadership activities as well. And we do send a lot of people off to school, including places like this.
Well, and just Truth in Advertising, we do have a partnership with
We
Northrup
do.
around our leadership suite.
We actually do, and we've had that for quite a number of years. Actually, some of our predecessor companies are now using the new. Second question is, what is a typical day like? There are no 2 days the same. I can, day like today, I'm going to, spend some time with you, and then I'm going to go watch the UCLA football game. A typical day at work, I travel a lot. If you're not interested in traveling or doing what it takes to get ahead, then you should not aspire to be the top executive or one of the top executives of the company. It does take time, energy. I just got back yesterday from about a week and a half on the road. A few days in a ranch in Wyoming. This is part of the fun part. With all the leaders of the world aerospace industry, we have a group that gets together there, and we basically put on cowboy hats and shoot guns and ride horses. And there's a lot of relationship building. And then all of last week was in my Washington, D.C. office, operating reviews. I had 5 operating reviews in 4 hours each, 5 hours each. Our visits over to Capitol Hill, visits to Pentagon, dinner meetings with various people. It's just everything different. I may give a speech or 2 on a day, meet with employees in the factory another day, go to Wall Street, meet with our investors, explain the company. I sometimes get beaten up for the fact that we had a bad quarter. By the way, the quarter we're doing some recycle always creates every 3 months and sort of tension in all of corporate America. Meeting with the board 6, 7, 8 times a year. And the board of directors are my bosses, and they're there to really help us manage the company. So every day is different. What I like about it is I'm not Gilbert, I'm not in the cubicle.
Let's go, here. Thank you, and your name?
Jeremy Iverner, Section 1.
And
I portfolio Melvin. You mentioned earlier a $60 billion backlog. What are some of the factors that attribute to that, and what is Northrop Grumman doing to resolve that backlog?
We don't want to resolve it, we want it to grow. Well, first of all, we will go out and compete very aggressively for major new contracts. Let me give you an example. An aircraft carrier. That's about a $4 billion program. One aircraft carrier, about $4 billion, and it lasts for 5, 6 years. So we'll go out and work hard to design it, get the program, and get it awarded, get Congress to fund it, and put it in our backlog, and then we work it off during the course of it. It becomes sales each year, right? Backlog is the intake, and sales is the manifestation of it.
in some industries, backlog is good.
Yeah, in our industry it's good. The more backlog, the more visibility you have. So it says if we spend $30 billion or so a year, that's 2 years worth of work, which we have firmly committed and firmly funded. I always told our people, we have to find $650 million of new business each week. That's over $100 million of new business every day. Otherwise, we're going to go out of business. Think about that. So sometimes Friday evenings I come home and visit with my wife with a glass of wine, and suddenly I have this panic feeling. Did we get our $650 million this week? I can't remember seeing. Did we get it? But it actually, and it comes in lumps, but it is a large machine. It has to be fed. But it's all about competitiveness. The other thing that's important is to perform on the work you have. If you screw up on what you're doing, your customers will find other suppliers to give the work to.
Go ahead, and we need a microphone. In a moment. Go ahead.
My name is John Alexander with B. Riley. I'm a stock trader. So my question to you is, first of all, you've heard all the talk about the CEO pay.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think it's great.
My second question is, does the stock price affect your decisions, and do you wish that you had to report them every 3 months, annually, or something like that?
Everyone heard the question?
Everybody hear the question?
CEO pay and quarterly results and how that's going.
I'll take the second question first and come back to the first one. After the first time. Yes, we do report every quarter, every 90 days, and there is this ops tempo, if you will, of having to do that. There have been, over the last few years, an increase increasingly invasive and sometimes revealing, sometimes that's good, sometimes not good, rules, regulations, requirements in terms of what you do, which puts an enormous amount of management focus on the short-term earnings report. Did I make the analyst consensus for this quarter, or did I miss it by 3 pennies? I missed it by 3 pennies. What's it going to do to my stock? Oh my God, oh my God. Private equity, by counter example, will own the company, doesn't report for it. They will make decisions, which are generally economic decisions, and if they have to make a big investment or take a write-off, it's not public, they're really playing a 3 to 5 year game. I have to think that probably is the way we should be, not probably is the way we should think and operate. The difficulty is we live in a fishbowl, and at times we get punished in the short term because of that. You don't want to lose investor confidence, even though you're doing the right things, and sometimes investors won't give you enough time to show that it was the right thing. With respect to CEO pay, big issue, it's going to be the big poster child for the next crossing season. There have been abuses, without question. And I think what you have to separate in your mind is the variables between the massive abuses that are highly publicized of the handful or two of people, of the thousands of CEOs in America, and the market forces which govern compensation for all senior executives, including the rank you all will be filling after you finish this program where you already trained in. It is a marketplace. You don't want abuses. But on the other hand, I think we're going to have almost a political reaction to it. And the thing that we would be careful of is that we do not put a set of rules and regulations in place which will basically squelch the entrepreneurial spirit. We've seen a remarkable flight of capital from the public markets to the private markets. And part of that's for other reasons, but part of that, Frank, and a remarkable flight of executive talent from publicly traded companies to privately traded companies. I don't have a single CEO peer that I know who isn't thinking or hasn't thought at some point in time of going to a private company. And that's because of the environment that's been created by all this nonsense we see. Some which is important, some which is justified. So at the end of the day, executive pay is what it is. It's going to be a wild factor to be politicized, but good companies need the best people, and they're going to have to compete for marketplace.
2 more questions at the back there.
I'm Brian Newland from Section 1. I work at Northrup Grumman.
Hey, good company.
Northrup, you talked about meeting with other members of Congress, people on Capitol Hill. The company has the potential to exert a lot of influence on our government.
Yes.
And how that factors into our business. How does that tie into a sense of social responsibility with how we develop our business and how we make those interactions with what ends up being the majority of our customers?
That's an excellent question. And what we have in this country is a democracy, a representative democracy, where the people elect the leadership. The leadership then makes decisions on how to spend the money. And what I found is that the congressional and administration processes are not perfect. They involve lots of complexity, and they're sort of a marketplace for ideas. And you could also say influence, maybe one in the pejorative word or positive word. It's very important in our case that our company, first of all, follows all rules, regulations, dictates, mandates, ethical guidelines in terms of how we interact in the political scene. But it is part of the laws of this country, and it's expected in this democracy that a business can, in fact, interact in a very positive and public way and advocate and, in fact, lobby. So we have lobbyists in the company, and when I'm on Capitol Hill, the amount of time I spend for lobbying is not allowable to be reimbursed by government contracts. Keep accurate records of that. It's important when I meet with members of Congress that I explain to them why the programs that we're involved in or why we think a certain national defense initiative is important. I have a voice. I can't personally control the outcome, but I can advocate. I think the whole founding father approach was it is a marketplace of ideas. No one person can be the King George, if you will, and the marketplace will sort this out. So I'm in there, my competitor's in there, and the best ideas often win. Sometimes they don't, but over time they will. So if my competitors are advising the government they should buy this kind of an airplane, and I'm saying I've got the airplane for the job, we put our best ideas forward, and the answer comes out the way it comes out. So to not be in the game is frankly not doing a service to the certain not going to serve our shareholders.
Okay, so I'm going to relent, but you have to be really quick. I'll make 2 questions possible, but very quick. Go ahead.
Hi, Hi, Dr. Sugar. My name is Agnes, and I work for Raytheon. And
We need to improve your thinking.
I tried to get Brian to sign a non-disclosure agreement to talk to me, but he didn't. And I'm actually finally getting over the bitterness of the Gator loss. But as many are predicting a potential downturn in our industry, and the lack of commercial diversity, as you mentioned, there's some predictions that like the 90s, there's going to be more consolidations. And I was wondering if, 1, you would agree with that, and 2, to the extent you can share, if you're happy or comfortable with the cash situation Northrop Grumman is in, to continue to be a leader on the acquiring side, or if you believe that maybe parts of your business would be targeted.
Okay. Well, I always have said, I've answered this question many times to reporters, to members of Congress, others on TV. The future of defense spending will depend upon the real and the perceived threat to our nation's security. If you believe that the world is going to get safer pretty soon, and that the threats are going to diminish, then I'd say short the stock. If you believe that the world is going to get more complex, more dangerous, and that the United States' interests in this world are going to have to be more carefully protected, then I'd say there's going to be a continuing need for defense spending. Democrat or Republican, you're going to see both sides of the aisle will do what is necessary. They'll fight, they'll bicker, there'll be theological arguments about which is better. But at the end of the day, if there's a threat, it will be taken care of. I'd like to believe the world's going to get safer soon. I don't see that. The question is, how is it going to be more dangerous? Nobody saw the 9/11 thing coming through it. Nobody saw the massive issue of the rise of fundamentalism, which has been something we had to be dealing with as a nation. But there's a lot of countries out there with nuclear weapons, with missiles, and they're much more dangerous than roadside bombs. Much more dangerous, and we have to deal with it. So that's my view. We'll see where it develops. The second question was?
We won't deal with it.
We can't do it second.
Okay. Sorry about that. One more question. Okay, back there.
Hi, my name is Kristen August. I work with the Integrated Systems Western Region in contracts. And just to bring it back to the people, I was wondering, because that's a change that we can all affect, individually, and then you see the collective, group effort together. What would you like to see as a change in our corporate culture? Over the past 4.5 years that I've been there, I've noticed that we are outstanding in our ethics and integrity. What other change, would you like to see or improvement in our corporate culture?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm glad to hear that you see that from your perspective, because sometimes when you're at the top of the house, you broadcast, but you don't know if it's really taking. Clearly, we don't want to ever lose up on that, and we want to do better, because we're only as good as our weakest link in the company. If somebody does something bad, it can affect all of us. What I would like to see, though, is a greater focus on performance in this company. I would like to see us be able to drive better financial outcomes for our owners, our shareholders, than we've had in the past, through better execution. We're putting a lot of energy into that, and we're putting more of our focus and leadership training into that area. We've been absolutely certain a few years ago when we brought all this culture together, everybody understood that ethics and integrity were inviolable, and now we have to work harder on all the other dimensions of performance as well.
So I'm going to take the last question. Speaker prerogative here. You live, as you said, Ron, in a bubble. You have press that over-adulates you on the upside and over-vilifies you on the downside. You are subject sometimes to threats. You have bodyguard. This is not, there's sacrifice there, and there's a potential for an isolated existence. How do you stay centered? How do you stay connected?
Well, the thing that brings me back to earth all the time is my wife, who explains to me I'm not the CEO at home. And she's right. When you get adulated, which doesn't happen that far away, you can think you're pretty good. And I've always said you're not as good as you think you are. When times are bad, you're not as bad as they say you are. I think you need to have a few things to keep you First of all, you have to have a moral compass, because you are a leader. A lot of people's livelihoods and lives depend upon you getting things right. You have to have a sense of where you're going, a mission, and you have to believe in it. And you have to convey that to people. You have to have a high degree of toughness, not necessarily go around and punch people in the nose, but be tough relative to sticking the course when things are not going well. Any executive can look like a hero when things are going well. Any CEO can look great when his market is rising. The best CEOs are the ones who can handle things in both kinds of cycles. And we all try to sharpen ourselves to do that. You can get isolated. You have to remember that you're no different than anybody else, but you have a different set of responsibilities. From time to time, I like to step out of those and do things directly with kids, get to other places, go on vacation where nobody knows who the heck I am, go to different countries, and then come back refreshed, and then kind of put on the battle armor again and go at it. But I think it's all about having a desire, and for any of you who aspire to be the CEO of a major company, or a senior executive, you have to kind of decide what do you want to do and what are you prepared to sacrifice for it. Keep some balance about it, but you got to do what it takes and do it at tough times as well as the good times.
And from my vantage point, you've done that remarkably well. Any of you who've read Jim Collins' book on Good to Great will see that CEO humility is a very important predictor of success, in addition to all of the other great leadership attributes and talents that Ron has. I'm not at all surprised about the enormous success and sustainability of Northrop Grumman and UNO. Thank you so much, Ron.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you so much, and we hope that you will use it from us and read